The environment is an astonishingly poisoned discourse, I'm afraid to say. It's as poisoned as the environment itself. We are incapable of having a good conversation about it. It's become an ideological game where if the feeling of the sort of further right you are, the more dismissive you are of the caring for the environment, and the converse on the left, which is ridiculous, given that we are all dependent upon it and we are all responsible for its stewardship. There's no conversation again around the things that actually matter in this. There's frittering at the margins, and even when it was at the front and center, and we were talking about carbon pricing and emissions and things like that, which have seemingly gone out of fashion to discuss. We weren't talking about those in honest terms because there was this huge emotional contest around are we going to reduce our emissions by 5% across a certain period or what have you, and the mechanisms to achieve that. But of course, that immediately undermines itself because Australia, even though we contribute a huge amount for a small country, I think it's 2% of global emissions or something like that, raising that by 5% is not going to change anything. And we need to talk seriously about what are our plans for a future in which there's more carbon in the atmosphere. And you can have any discussions around the margins of what we can know and cannot know about that, but the discourse has been very poor. I hope you agree. Um, and we also don't talk about the major, from my perspective, the major catastrophe of contemporary environmental stuff, which is our high rates of consumption of stuff that we don't need to be consuming and products that didn't exist in at all on the planet, certain plastics and chemical compounds and what have you that just didn't even exist a century ago. And now we're increasingly at an exponentially increasing rate, putting them everywhere. There's no discourse around that. There's no plan. There's just embarrassing things that happen now and then. Like Victoria, it came out they were sending all their recycling to China, and then China said we're not going to take it anymore. Like there's just all these like weird systems that are very catch-22 book, not the phenomenon in their execution. And in this election, that's manifested in a really boring way with discussion around, environment, that means energy. Here's our plan for, we want to have X mix of renewable energy, or we want to have nuclear power plants, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, those are important parts of the conversation, but in isolation, they actually mean nothing. You could put in enough energy in Australia tomorrow. It was all nuclear that would cover 100% of our needs. Does that mean that we're going to get rid of the coal and gas plants that we have as well, or are we going to be delighted to have extra stuff to export? Probably the latter. Certainly, if there's not a framework of reducing your overall usage of such resources, it's Jevons paradox in engineering, and and it just comes up time and time again how few politicians seem to be aware of that. They're very happy to trumpet something that sounds like a win, and I guess it's our fault because most of us think that it is a win to have increased access to renewable electricity or something like that. Sounds great, but if that just means that you're burning less coal here, you're shipping it off to Indonesia to be burnt, it doesn't actually solve the problem. It's just pushing the balloon around, and will come with all the consequences that we fear, and that's a disaster.